Hi there. I'm going to keep this public service announcement short and to the point. No, the potential Nymeria prequel pitch to Game of Thrones has not been officially canceled or shelved. It hasn't been anything. So why were people talking about this the past week and going viral through the telephone game of social media? It turned into Nymeria has been canceled. It hasn't. Well, a couple of days ago, writer Brian Helgeland, who's a great professional, wrote the script for LA Confidential, a couple of other things. He was giving a big interview on an unrelated project, and in part of that, he briefly talked about the work he did on his Nymeria pitch, which was passed on. That was passed on back in like 2018, because there were two Nymeria prequel pitches in the two different waves of prequels that were suggested. That wave one of prequel pitches back in the old HBO era are the War of the Five pitches that they announced in mid-2017. And Helgeland's idea was one of the first they passed on. They said the three that got close to being finished that had story Bibles were Long Night, Dance of the Dragons ultimately got made by Ryan Condal, and Valyria. But then they went with the Long Night pilot. It bombed. They shifted back to Condal doing Dance of the Dragons. He was the third person that did what became House of the Dragon. The idea of doing a Dance of the Dragons prequel pitch also went through three separate pitches. First, Carly Ray, then Brian Cogman. Third one was Ryan Condal, that they repitch things from scratch. Like how Benioff and Weiss's pitch for The First Jedi, the origin of the Jedi, the Benioff and Weiss First Jedi pitch was scrapped. But the new project they're developing now is an entirely separate pitch on the same idea. So I hate this, that it's almost like it reminds me of the whole sad routine from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the King of Swamp Castle is trying to tell the guards, wait here and don't let anyone else in or out, except obviously me, don't let my son leave. So just how many times I have to go, now, either me or you, okay, the first pitch was shelved. Has the Nymeria pitch been shelved? The first one was, but there's a new one, so it was never shelved, so Helgeland is still here. Guys, they started a new pitch from scratch. How is this hard to juggle? The second wave of prequel pitches was under the AT&T era, which turned into Warner Discovery. That there was this second burst of prequel pitches we heard about after that, spring of 2021, which included Tales of Dunk and Egg, the 9 voyages of young Corlys Velaryon the Sea Snake, and 10,000 ships of Nymeria and the Rhoynar. Of that wave, Dunk and Egg is filming a month from now, and a couple months ago, George R.R. Martin wrote in his blog that young Corlys is being shifted to animation, because realistically, doing this live, the cost would be astronomical. Pointing out that, think about the practicality of, we'd have to build a new set for each port he visits. Compared to, Nymeria, there are, it's a large scale, but there's basically 3 sets, or a beach set or something. There's a huge war scene, but the number of ports he visits and all the other stuff, that would be even bigger than Nymeria. So the generally accepted by most people, that the cost would be huge to do that live action. So what is going on with Nymeria, because we haven't heard anything about it? Well, I point to glass half full, the absence of evidence, that Martin is pretty honest and open with us when things get shot down. So I think that if the second Nymeria prequel pitch under Amanda Siegel had been canceled, he probably would have just told us. And even more so, if it had been shifted to animation at the same time young Corlys had been shifted to animation, he would have mentioned it in the same blog post, and he didn't. So, lowest chances it was shifted to animation. I really doubt that. He would have just told us. Slightly more probable it was canceled outright. But I still think it's just in limbo. They're trying to figure out how to fit it into everything. But here's a new idea, because again, they pitched that 2021 before the Warner Discovery merger, and now David Zaslav really wants to focus on the core franchises and build them up as cross-platform franchise IP, that we're going to have not just TV shows for these core 4 or 5 things. We're going to have TV shows, video games, major theatrical movies, which is why we saw the recent Batman movies screenwriter Mattson Tomlin was hired to work on Targaryen Conquest, because Variety had reported that there's a lot of rumors coming out that Zaslav and Warner Discovery in general, what they want to do is, if the Targaryen Conquest was a 5-season show, and season 1 was the conquest itself, and season 5 is the downfall of Maegor, season 1 is self-contained enough and action-heavy. Can we turn that into a theatrically released movie on the conquest, from the landing to the field of fire? And I think that's actually a pretty good idea in terms of cross-promotion and stuff, a high-budget movie that turns into a TV series. Well, keeping with that, just pause and think as a thought experiment. What else would work as, big action-oriented theatrical movies that it relatively self-contained? Corliss wouldn't, because it doesn't have a narrative arc beginning to end, and it's also very long. There's 9 voyages. Nymeria has a clear beginning, middle, end, so in the back of my mind, I increasingly speculate I think they might be retooling Nymeria as a movie trilogy. Beginning, middle, end. The first one is, it's not just the Rhoynar, it's we see the Valyrians at the height of their power, so we'd see ancient Targaryens in this as well. That right when they were rising to power, because they were a young family that rose to power in the conquests. Movie 1 would be the Rhoynish Wars and the Battle of Volantis, 300 dragons in a single battle versus water wizards, the downfall of the Rhoynar, and them fleeing. Then Act 2 out of a 3-act structure, the middle movie, would be them fleeing around the Summer Sea and landing in Sothorios, their fantasy version of Africa, and literally fighting dinosaurs. Sothorios and the jungles of the interior and stuff are literally Skull Island, with giant apes and dinosaurs, and we just had another Godzilla vs. Kong movie out, which is owned by Warner Discovery, so think like that. And then the third movie would be, first we visit the Summer Isles in live action for the first time, and then they would land in Dorne and unify it by allying with House Martell, and you'd see Dorne being built like that in politics and stuff. So I just realized, of the things on a short list of things that you might be able to tweak a little and reconfigure into movies, Nymeria as a movie trilogy is a potential idea, and my suspicion is we haven't heard a lot about it because they're retooling it due to the new mission statement goal of we need more theatrical movies. What I don't know, well, I do think they're probably doing that. I have no idea if Amanda Segel is still attached. I have to admit, equally probable is that they want to do Nymeria as movies, but restarted it under some other writer we haven't heard about yet. And who knows how much Amanda Segel is contributing to it. I mean, Duncan Egg, which is filming in a month, the spec script, the pitch was made by Steve Conrad, who we don't think is attached to the project anymore. The showrunner on the final version is Ira Parker. So, separate question, is Amanda Segel still attached? I'm not sure, but they really wanted to make Nymeria to the point that it was recycled from one pitch phase into the next wave under a different writer. They think it's a really good idea. And of course, episode 1 of House of the Dragon was very prominently laying the groundwork of a prequel hook, of very prominently explaining to the TV-only audience, this is who Nymeria was. That was obviously them setting up other spin-offs. That they really wanted to do this as late as, like the beginning of House of the Dragon. So I think we haven't heard about it because they might be retooling it as a set of movies. But this whole thing I just did here, unedited, audio only, this is basically a trailer for the longer video I already made, I'm editing together, on upcoming phases of the Westeros cinematic universe and where I think Nymeria would fit into that. on the scale of the next 20 years. Please check that out.